At the quarterly review, my team lead scoffed and said, "You're like a cute office pet, fun to have around, but useless for real work." The room laughed as he mimicked tossing me a treat. I smiled sweetly, pulled out the signed proposal he had stolen word for word from my draft, and slid it across the table to the VP, who leaned in and asked calmly, "Care to explain this? I, 33 female, have worked in the marketing industry for about 10 years. I'm not flashy. I don't have a loud voice. I don't interrupt meetings or brag about my work. I just do it quietly and well. I've been at this firm in Milwaukee for 5 years now. It's mid-sized, nothing fancy, but we handle national clients sometimes. I was part of the digital strategy team. Our department got a new lead about a year and a half ago, a guy named Brandon, 40 male. Right away, I didn't like him. He was the kind of guy who talked over people, especially women. He'd dominate meetings, laugh the loudest at his own jokes, and use words like synergy and disrupt way too often. He bragged all the time about his old firm in San Francisco and how he brought a new vision to our team. Mostly what he brought was chaos. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I even stayed late a few times to help him with reports when he was swamped. I'd send him research I'd done, email suggestions, follow up on his requests fast. I thought if I showed him I was helpful, he'd see I had value. Instead, he started calling me Sunshine. It wasn't a compliment. He'd say it with this smug little smile, always when other people were around. "Thanks, Sunshine." If I passed him the printed agenda. Or, "Sunshine, be a doll and grab us some coffees." Even though I wasn't his assistant and he never asked the guys on our team to do that. He'd roll his eyes when I spoke. Ignore my input. Talk over me in front of clients. One time, after I brought up an idea that got good feedback from the creative director, he told me, "That was surprisingly sharp for you." He once said in a team meeting that I was like an emotional support animal, very calming, but not really equipped to drive business decisions. I was humiliated. People laughed, but it was the nervous kind. Nobody stood up for me. I started documenting things. Not everything, but enough. I didn't plan to go to HR yet. I've seen how that usually goes. But I wanted to be prepared. Then we landed this major client in the health and wellness space. It was a really big deal. The firm announced a competitive pitch. Every team would submit their strategy internally, and leadership would pick one to present to the client. It was the kind of thing that could change someone's career. I threw myself into it. I stayed late most nights, worked on weekends. I built out a full campaign. Market research, brand positioning, digital rollout, slogan, even mock-ups. I wrote up the full proposal, 18 pages, not counting the slides. It was clean, backed with data, and original. I submitted it to Brandon 2 weeks before the quarterly review. 3 days later, he called me into his office. Said my proposal had promise, but wasn't strong enough to move forward. He said I lacked the strategic aggression the client would need. Then he smiled and said, "Don't worry, Sunshine, I'll take it from here." I knew. Right then. I knew. I went back to my desk, pulled up the version I sent him, and saved a printed copy with the metadata. File history, creation date, author name, all of it. I tucked it in my bag and didn't tell anyone. The day of the quarterly review, I wore a black blazer and sat near the back. Brandon wore his usual navy suit, no tie. He looked relaxed, smug. Leadership was all there. Cara O'Neill, our VP of Strategy, was at the head of the table. She doesn't talk much, but she sees everything. They went over earnings, client updates, new accounts. Then it was Brandon's turn. He stood, connected his laptop, and started his pitch for the wellness client. My pitch. Same structure. Same strategy. Same rollout plan. He even used my exact line for the tagline, "Build better days," which I hadn't shared with anyone but him. I felt sick, but I kept my face neutral. He finished his presentation. Everyone clapped. Then he smiled and said, "Couldn't have done it without my team. Especially Sunshine here." He pointed at me. "She's like our cute little office pet. Fun to have around, but, not really built for real work." Then he laughed and mimed tossing me a treat. The room laughed with him. I didn't. I opened my folder and pulled out the printed copy of my proposal. I slid it across the table to Cara. She looked down at it. "Read the title." Flipped to the back. Checked the dates. Didn't say anything at first. Then she slowly looked up at Brandon. Care to explain this? You could have heard a pin drop. Brandon tried to laugh it off. Said we all contributed, and maybe there was some idea overlap. Kara didn't say a word. Just stood and said, let's step outside. They left the room together. We sat in silence. Nobody looked at me. 20 minutes later, they came back. Kara looked calm. Brandon looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Kara said, we'll resume tomorrow. The strategy review is postponed. That was it. She didn't sit. She just left. Next morning, 9:07 a.m., we all got an email from HR. Subject: staff change announcement effective immediately. Brandon Ellis is no longer employed at Finch and Lane. Please direct all wellness strategy questions to Kara O'Neill. No goodbye. No explanation. I haven't said a word to anyone. But I saw his office getting packed up by the admin team. He didn't even come back to do it himself. A week later, Kara invited me to her office. She didn't say much. Just asked me to walk her through the proposal step by step. She took notes, nodded, and said, good work. You're leading the client pitch next month. That was it.
No fanfare. No announcement.
But I walked out of her office knowing I wasn't sunshine anymore. I had stayed quiet too long. Let him push me around. Let them all laugh. But I don't regret it. Because when it mattered, I didn't scream. I just handed over the truth. And it was enough to burn his career to the ground. After Brandon got fired, things were different. At first, people acted awkward around me. Like they didn't know what to say. Some stopped making eye contact in the break room. Others went out of their way to smile too much, like they were trying to prove they hadn't been part of the laughter that day. I didn't care. I kept working, focused on the wellness client, built out the pitch deck, coordinated with the design team, prepped every possible question the client might ask. It was my shot and I wasn't going to waste it. Kara checked in a few times. Always brief. But I noticed she gave me space to lead. That meant a lot. About a week before the pitch, I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn. It was from Brandon. He didn't use his real name. He changed the profile to BE Strategy Consultant. But I recognized the photo. Same smirk. Same crossed arm pose in front of a fake city skyline. The message said, guess congrats are in order. Didn't think you had it in you. Just know this. The people at the top don't forget. And neither do I. I stared at the message for a full minute. Didn't reply. Just screenshot it and saved it in the same folder I'd kept all my original notes in. Then I blocked him. That would have been the end of it. But of course, guys like Brandon don't go quietly. 2 days before the pitch, I got called into a last-minute compliance review. Something about creative overlap. HR wanted to talk. So did legal. I walked in and saw 2 people I'd never met before. One from compliance, the other from the legal team. They had a printed copy of my wellness proposal in front of them. The compliance rep, a sharp woman in her 50s with reading glasses and a tight ponytail, said they'd received an anonymous report that I'd borrowed heavily from a pitch done at another firm 2 years ago. I blinked. What? She slid over a few pages. They had Brandon's name watermarked on the bottom. It was a similar concept: wellness branding, social media rollout, influencer partnerships. I felt my heart start to race. Who sent this? I asked. We can't disclose that, the legal guy said. I looked through the pages. Yeah, it was similar in layout. But the messaging was totally different. The target demographic? Completely different. Even the tone and slogans weren't alike. He must have found an old proposal he worked on and tweaked it just enough to try and make it look close. They asked me a few more questions. I kept calm, showed them the creation logs on my file, the time-stamped emails, and even the Slack messages where I discussed ideas with my designer, days before Brandon had been assigned the client. I also mentioned the LinkedIn message, offered the screenshot. They took notes, said they'd follow up. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if it worked? What if he actually got in their heads enough to make them doubt me? But the next morning, Kara pulled me into her office. She didn't waste time. We handled it. The complaint was baseless. Next time someone tries to throw mud, bring a hose. I nodded. Thank you. She paused. Did you keep that LinkedIn message? I did. Good. Document everything. You've made enemies and not just him. That stuck with me. After we won the client pitch, it went flawlessly, by the way. Kara promoted me to senior strategist. Officially. Quietly. But I got the title and the pay bump. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally being seen. But that's when the next storm started. Brandon didn't just leave quietly. He started whispering. To others in the industry. To old contacts. To a few people who used to work at Finch and Lane and had since moved to other firms. He spread this lie that I was cutthroat, that I was playing the victim to get ahead, said I was manipulative, claimed I set him up. I found out from a former coworker who still talked to him. She messaged me, warning me that he was poisoning the well. 1 week later, a recruiter I'd been casually talking to stopped responding. Then a friend who worked at a different firm told me her boss had passed on hiring me because someone warned them I didn't play well with teams. It was happening. He was trying to ruin my name behind the scenes. And he wasn't doing it alone. There were others. People who laughed along with him. People who didn't like that I'd brought someone down in public. People who thought I should have just let it go. I realized something ugly. My real fight wasn't with Brandon anymore. It was with a system that protected guys like him, even after they were gone. But I had a plan. I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. So yeah, Brandon was gone, but the shadow he left behind wasn't. I kept my head down, worked harder, nailed the next 2 client presentations, hit my KPIs early. I thought results would speak for themselves. But in corporate life, results don't always matter as much as the whispers in the hallway. 3 months after Brandon was fired, I noticed something strange. My access to certain files started disappearing. I couldn't see the updated analytics dashboards I used to pull weekly. The internal chat channels I'd helped build got archived without notice. When I brought it up to IT, they said it was a permissions bug and would be resolved. It wasn't. Then came the meeting I wasn't invited to. It was with a potential new client in the tech sector. I had helped put together the pre-pitch material. I knew the client's background better than anyone. Then the day of the meeting came and I saw my coworkers walking into the conference room without me. One even looked at me and awkwardly said, "Oh, didn't know you weren't looped in." I emailed Kara. She replied, "Let's talk tomorrow." The next day we met. She looked tired. "I'm not sure what's going on," she said quietly. "There's been pressure from upstairs." "What kind of pressure?" She hesitated. "Concerns. About leadership readiness. About team fit." It hit me all at once. Someone above her was pushing me out. And I had a good guess who. Brandon had friends. Not in my department but in operations and sales. Guys who'd gone golfing with him, joked with him in the break room. One of them, Matt, VP of sales, had even gone out for drinks with Brandon the night after he got fired. Matt was powerful. He'd been at the company for years. Rumor was he was tight with the CEO. I didn't know exactly what Brandon had told him, but it was working. I was being slowly boxed out. No formal write-ups. No direct complaints. Just the slow freeze. Kara didn't say it directly, but I could tell her hands were tied. She was protecting me where she could, but she wasn't the one pulling strings anymore. So I made a decision. If they were going to quietly try to push me out, I wasn't going quietly. I opened that folder again. The one where I'd kept every email, every timestamped document, every Slack screenshot. I even had a screen recording I'd taken months ago, when Brandon had accidentally opened a doc during a Zoom call with my name still in the file title. But that wasn't enough. I needed to show what this place really was. Not just Brandon. The culture. The silence. The way people like me were treated when we stopped being quiet. I started documenting everything. Again. Who was at each meeting. What was said. What I was excluded from. I backed up all my work to a private drive. Took photos of whiteboards when no one was looking. Screenshot calendar invites. Emails, internal comments. I wasn't doing it for fun. I was preparing. Then I reached out to an old college friend, Riley, who worked in corporate HR at a different company. I asked for advice. She didn't work for my firm, but she knew the system. She asked me one thing. Do you have proof of a pattern? I did. But I needed more. So I baited them. I scheduled a meeting to present a new strategy idea. Added everyone relevant, including Matt from sales. Sent the calendar invite. Shared a preview deck. Then I watched the invite get quietly canceled and rescheduled without me. This time, they didn't just exclude me. They used my deck and repackaged it. Changed the slide theme, moved some bullet points, but it was still mine. They left the original Google Slides edit history on by mistake. I took screenshots. Saved everyone. Then I waited. The next all-hands meeting. Kara stood to announce exciting new directions for Q1. Matt stepped in to present a new client initiative. He walked through the slides, all proud of his strategy. It was my work. Again. Only this time I didn't hand a sheet of paper to Kara. I sent the full package directly to the CEO. Subject line. Ongoing retaliation and IP theft. From your leadership team. Attachments included. Screenshots of Brandon's stolen proposal from before he was fired. Screenshots of Matt's new strategy using my deck logs of every calendar invite I'd been cut out of a folder of internal emails showing how I'd been boxed out over months. A copy of Brandon's LinkedIn threat. Dated and timestamped. I ended the email simply. I've tried to do my job. I've tried to lead with integrity. But your leaders are protecting their friends and punishing the people who speak up. You have the power to stop this, or I can take everything to the client who owns the work your team is now stealing. I hit send at 8:03 a.m. By 9:17 I was called into a private meeting with Kara and the CEO. He didn't look pleased. Not with me. Not with what I'd exposed. Kara looked relieved. But it wasn't over. I had just fired a warning shot. And in the next few days I was going to find out how far they were willing to go to protect their own. When I sat down in the CEO's office, I expected denial. I expected him to downplay everything, maybe tell me I misunderstood, offer me some vague promise to look into it. Instead, he shut the door, pulled out a printout of the email I sent, and said, "This is serious." I stayed quiet. Just nodded. Kara was already in the room. She looked like she hadn't slept. The CEO asked me to explain everything out loud, even though he had the evidence in front of him. So I did. I walked through every stolen file, every meeting I was removed from, the timeline, the threats, the whisper campaign. I told him I didn't come in that day to beg for my job. I came to remind him I built the work they were profiting from. And if he didn't act, I'd take the full story to the client, to the press, to whoever would listen. At the end, he looked at Kara, then looked back at me and said, "I believe you. And I'm going to fix this." He asked me to give him 3 days. He said he needed to speak with legal and the board before making a move. I said fine. But if I heard anything was being covered up or twisted, I'd go public. I was calm. I was clear. Then I left the office, went home and waited. 3 days passed. On the morning of the 4th day, the company sent out an all-staff Zoom invite for 10 a.m., leadership updates and policy refresh. That's when I knew. I logged in on time. Everyone was there, close to 200 employees on the call. The CEO came on camera and got straight to it. Over the last several weeks, concerns were raised regarding the handling of internal intellectual property and retaliation against employees. After a full investigation, I want to share the outcomes. He started with Brandon. Even though Brandon had already been fired, the CEO announced that the company had submitted an official statement to the Professional Ethics Board and the American Marketing Association, outlining Brandon's behavior. He would be blacklisted from future partnerships with any of our agency's national affiliates. Then Matt. Effective immediately, Matt, the VP of Sales, was being terminated for cause. The CEO listed ethics violations, intellectual property theft, and targeted retaliation.
No severance.
No reference letter. No golden parachute. Matt was gone. But the CEO wasn't done. He turned toward the camera and said, "The damage this caused didn't come just from 1 or 2 people. It came from silence." Laughter at the wrong moment. Looking the other way. That ends now. Then he made the biggest announcement of all. The company was creating a formal employee IP protection policy, with real track systems for proposal ownership and pitch credit. On top of that, every director and VP would be required to go through ethics training. Not the 20-minute slideshow kind. Real in-person sessions tracked with written evaluations. Then came my part. They didn't say my name, but everyone knew. The CEO announced a new role, Director of Strategic Integrity. It would be a senior-level position, reporting directly to Kara. This person would oversee all internal pitches, enforce fair credit, and serve as an advocate for people cut out of the conversation. Then he paused and said, "The person stepping into that role is someone who has already proven they understand integrity better than anyone." And that was it. My inbox lit up with calendar invites, congratulatory emails, and a formal offer letter titled Pay Bump, Benefits, Permanent Seat at the Table. But I didn't say yes right away, 'cause I still wasn't done. That night, I sat down and wrote a detailed letter to the wellness client whose campaign Brandon had tried to steal and Matt had hijacked. I explained the truth. I attached my original proposal with timestamps. I told them the work they were proud of didn't come from a broken system. It came from one voice nearly erased. I told them that voice was still here, and stronger than ever. They responded the next day. "We're grateful you spoke up. If your firm had handled this differently, we would have pulled our account. Instead, we're expanding it." Then I got one more message. From Brandon. Not through LinkedIn. Not through email. A letter. Mailed to my home. Sloppy handwriting. One sentence. "You'll never make it past the good old boys." I didn't reply. I just scanned it, added it to my documentation, and sent it to Kara with the subject line, "More proof of what we're fighting." Last I heard, Brandon was trying to start his own agency. Word spread fast. His name was already burned across half the Midwest. People stopped taking his calls. As for Matt, his LinkedIn sat dead for weeks. Then it disappeared. Kara and I work closely now. She's sharp, quietly furious at how much she missed under her nose, but making it right every day. My new office has a view of the lake. It's not huge, but it's mine. And now, when someone tries to cut me out of the room, they answer to me. I used to think staying silent would keep me safe. I was wrong. Silence protects them. Truth? That burns everything they built. And I'm not scared of the fire anymore.